Welcome back to the Chara Project. I'm Heather.
I'm Sarah.
And today we have a very special guest. We are honored to have our close friend Val Dowland on the show today.
Hey, guys.
Val has been a longtime friend of the Chara Project, and as you guys have known, we are recently been talking about how to engage your neighbor in Bible study, and we thought it would be so great to have Val on, not only because you've been doing Bible study with us for a while, Val, and have been such a close friend of the Chara Project team, but on top of it, you come from a different faith tradition. You come from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and so we wanted to have your perspective of what does it feel like to enter into Bible study with your neighbor and have an authentic relationship that we've been able to build over the years. And so welcome to the show. We're so thankful to have you here, and we're so grateful to have your perspective on the show.
Thanks, guys.
So you guys, I would love to take credit for being the one to bring Val into the Chara Project team relationship, but actually it was Sarah. You were the one that were neighbors with Val and kind of built your relationship. Tell us your story. What's the origin of Val and Sarah?
Well, gosh, I moved to Utah about 20 years ago, and Val and I have known each other for 9 years?
10. Evelyn is my marker.
10 years. And honestly, I wish I would have met her sooner. The first 10 years that I lived here, my husband and I had moved here as newlyweds. We really did not have any intention of staying here. So I think that might be one of the reasons that we really didn't get to know our neighbors. We didn't really put much effort into that. But if I'm honest, I think even more of a reason might have been the fact that we were a minority here. We moved here as evangelical Christians. There's less than 3% evangelical Christians living in Utah. At least that's the stat that I've most recently heard. And the predominant religion here, if you're not familiar with Utah, is our members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And outside of Utah, Val, what might people know you as?
More than likely it's Mormons or maybe LDS, but I'm guessing Mormons.
Yes, yeah. And so growing up in Oregon, I didn't know a single Mormon. At that point, really in the 80s and 90s, that's what we would have known or been more familiar with. I didn't know anyone. And so when I moved here, I didn't know anything about these people, the culture, their beliefs. And I think the few things that I did know or the differences that I began to learn, I think that just created more of a wall, a barrier when I first moved here than it did to build bridges. And I found my people, or I found my church, I found my community. I felt comfortable, I felt safe there. But I really, for the first 10 years, did nothing to really engage and get to know my neighbor. And it was at that point, about 10 years in, where God intervened and God took over, as he does, right? And there was two things that were catalysts to changing my heart towards the people in the community where we lived. One was when an LDS woman walked into my Bible study at my church, and God used that relationship to open doors and some different opportunities. And I've told that story on episode 80. You can go listen to that. The second one was when my kids were old enough to then enter the schools, and they wanted to play with some of the neighborhood kids. And there was this new family that had just moved in, 2 houses down, and my son wanted to play with her son. And I thought, well, gosh, I guess it's time I go meet the mom, right? Who is the parent here? And so I remember opening my door and walking out, and I'm pretty sure, Val, I met you halfway.
Yeah, we met in the middle.
You were on your way over. And boy, Val and I became fast friends. And not only that, our kids were friends, our husbands became friends. And they were the first people to invite us into their world. They were the first people to invite us over for dinner. Val's an amazing cook, and I love to eat. So it is a match made in heaven. But they truly were, you were remarkable, you were different, you were unique. And so I think that's one of the first questions I want to ask you, Val, because God used you in my life to completely change my heart towards my neighbors in the community where I lived. You were a catalyst in that. And I think a large part because I got to know you. You became a friend. And so I'm curious, Val, I think my first question to you is, why? Why were you willing to do what no one else did? Why were you willing to invest in this family living in, a couple houses down that didn't go to the same church as you? And then also maybe a follow-up question, why do you think others don't necessarily do that? And I'm not trying to cast blame here because we do that in our own faith community too. We've talked about some of the fears that maybe go alongside why we don't engage with people who believe differently. So 2 questions, Val. share some of your experience or your story, what maybe shaped you and encouraged you to really embrace people from a different faith background, and why might others not do that?
Okay, well, for the record, first of all, Sarah is actually a wonderful cook. So
She really is.
Yeah, we share that in common. That's one of the things we bonded over.
And
was-
Heather gets to benefit from both because I'm not a great cook. So praise the Lord for that.
But I guess for question one, I think I'd have to really go back to my parents in this. They were very instrumental. I actually was born in Oregon, but we didn't live there long, moved to California. And I even remember as a little girl, instead of going trick-or-treating, my dad worked with a Hindu man. And so we went and celebrated, and I'm so sorry, my ignorance, I can't remember which holiday it would be, the Hindu holiday that's around Halloween. But that's what we did. And so we experienced this new culture, new smells, new food, these people, and I loved it. I remember my parents always looking, oh my goodness. I guess we should just get it out here right now. I'll probably cry. So if you hear in the podcast, that's what's going on.
It's one of the reasons we love you, Val. You are just so genuine.
So they embraced, and that my mom, she loves big, and my dad has a deep heart as well. So that I think that would probably just be something that I grew up doing. We invited everybody over. Everyone was always welcome in our home. And so, and quite honestly, if I'm being honest, I was excited for the opportunity for my children to get to know people of other faith. And I think it's so important in the way that I want to raise my children and for myself, for my own benefit of having this more expansive worldview and not getting caught in like some sort of echo chamber of sorts where you just hear your own ideas rattled back to you, as opposed to, I want to think about things differently. I want to go about this world differently. And my gosh, do I want to see God in everybody. Like I want to see his children. So I think that's question one.
It's beautiful.
That is beautiful and so well said. Why do you think some people don't have that attitude? Do you think it's fear, or why do you think some people maybe are shy from engaging relationships with people who believe differently?
I think that this is deeper than even just a belief question. I think that it comes to anything that's different. If you're looking at race, any sort of prejudice, it's a learned thing. It's something that is maybe taught or passed down from, stories that other people tell. Who knows how all those things get worked into that fear. But I do think that there's fear there. Maybe there's laziness. Maybe it's like, hey, I'm comfortable. Why do I need to go outside what I know? Maybe that's it too. But I think that there's probably a lot of different reasons that come into that. But
Yeah. Well, I love that you spoke of your family, because I have met Val's family and they all have welcomed us in, and your family is truly lovely and remarkable and very open and accepting. So I would completely agree with that. Okay, so then you and we met, our families became friends, and I don't even really remember how it happened. But you were willing to go to Bible study with me at my church, not even just in my home, but you came to Bible study with my church. Obviously I invited you, but I'm not the boldest. I'm not the boldest person. So how did that happen?
to my recollection, we were just at your house chatting as we do. We had a lot of conversation in Sarah's bathtub of all the places. So Jared and I would go over, my husband Jared, we'd go over, we'd talk. He's in construction, and somehow we ended up in the bathroom.
Well, we were going to do a bathroom remodel. We did. We really spent some quality time in my garden tub.
Yes. Because eventually everybody's talking. I'm like, well, I'm going to sit down. So I'm sitting in the tub. So, but who knows where the conversation, it could have been there, it could have been the kitchen. I don't know where it took place. But we were just talking, and Sarah mentioned Bible study. And it's not something that's part of the LDS culture. And so I was very curious because as a little girl, I remember loving the scriptures. I remember loving reading the Word of God. And so that was very much, and again, also to my parents, like it was part of our family culture. So I just very curious. My interest was very piqued. And so, what's Bible study, Sarah? And she's like, oh, well, this is what it is. And do you want to come? And I was just like, well, I've got a baby because my little baby was couple months old at the time. And Sarah's like, well, we have childcare. So that was that. And then we went and we did it. We did the thing. So.
All right, so tell us about your first experience. Like I said, she was willing to walk into our church building, which I think can be a barrier sometimes. And so often these relationships might begin in your home. But at the time, it was in our church building. And so I remember you coming to Bible study, Val, and I'm just curious, tell us about that experience. Were you nervous? Was it what you expected?
Yeah, I mean, nervous for sure. Like I had no expectations, no preconceived notions of what this was even going to look like. If I remember correctly, we were doing a Timothy Keller study at the time, and it was. I probably have the book somewhere in a box, but well, we just moved. So anyway, and it was. I mean, there was a lot of vocabulary that was different, or even the way that we maybe used words, we use them differently. Mm-hmm. So much of the first time I was listening, trying to understand, and shame on me, maybe I didn't ask enough questions to understand everything completely, right? Like
it was your first time. You probably weren't really a pro at this, and probably nervous, would be my guess. Yeah.
But I mean, it was lovely because, you show up and then I get to take my little baby, and this wonderful woman is there to just watch my baby and watch my toddler, and I get to go and sit with like-minded women in my mind. We all love Christ, so that makes me like-minded with everybody there. Maybe a little nuanced difference, but we're not worried too much about that. So I loved it from the moment that we passed around the notebook with like the prayer requests to the very end. It was different and new, and maybe some of it was like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what that meant, but the Spirit was there. So we kept going, kept coming.
So I'm so curious about that experience, and even just experiences since then, because you obviously have been doing Bible study with Sarah and with me for a while now. What surprised you? What has surprised you in your journey of doing Bible study with people that believe differently than you?
So many good things, unexpected things. I think one of the things that surprised me the most was the reactions I got from other people. Because like I said, this isn't a predominantly held tradition in the LDS culture. And so, from my own faith community and even maybe even within like the Bible study group that we would attend, it was, are you searching for something different? Is this like a proselyting like thing? Like what is your purpose in being here? Why are you here? And it takes a minute for everybody to be comfortable that I'm comfortable where I'm at, and I'm also comfortable where my friends are at. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking to change anybody. I'm just looking to enjoy the differences there. And but that was a question I get often, like, well, how is your faith, meaning my faith in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I'm like, we're good. And this is actually so great for it. Like, I love this. I love being able to dive into the Bible and to learn more and just all the new ways. But yeah, I think that's maybe the thing that surprised me the most was people's reactions to it.
Yeah, and my guess is it goes both ways. I know that we get reactions, no matter what side of faith you're on, people are always curious about, well, what's the purpose behind it? There's got to be an agenda. There has to be something that's going on. And so I totally get that. There's going to be that curiosity when you're like, no, I just want to learn. Yeah. I just want to grow and I want to understand the Bible. Yeah. So I'm curious, and I'm I don't know if I necessarily gave this question to you ahead of time, but I am curious about, you've done a lot of studies with us. We've studied the Bible a lot. Is there been a passage or a book of the Bible or a study that you have enjoyed the most? What has been the thing that has really kind of helped you in your relationship with God?
Well,
and it can be more than one, because I have a feeling it might be.
There are so many good things. I think one of the more impactful ones, and luckily for me, we did it early on. Was it Angie Smith Seamless? Is that her name?
Yeah.
So it's just this overarching story of the Bible, which was so helpful because that was wonderful. And it was a very large picture view, which was helpful for me. Like, you're jumping books and hundreds of years at a time. But it was really great to see this story arc of the Bible. But, diving deep, like, I've loved any of the studies that we've done, like, at Sarah's house, we did just ourselves the book of Esther. And that was just like self-guided. That wasn't following any sort of study. But we've also followed like women in the Bible, actual Bible studies. And I don't know. I don't know if I could pick a favorite. Like, there are so many beautiful, wonderful things that we get to learn.
That's why I knew I was putting you on the spot, because I don't think Sarah and I could even answer that question, because
Yeah.
we would be like, ooh, well, we liked this one, but we
Right.
also,
Pick your favorite child.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, that's going to be hard. Obviously, entering into a relationship like this also has its challenges, right? It isn't as easy as it would be if you were just hanging out in your own church. And so, what are some of the challenges that you've run into? Things that just have made things a little bit more uncomfortable that comes with this territory.
Well, for me, I think, and maybe this kind of goes back to that first question of what was I most nervous about. Talking about things that are near to my heart, not really my forte, like that eloquence of being able to exactly say what I'm trying to say. It's not something that I do well. And so I felt bumbling at times in the way that I would answer things. And then I think maybe just the challenge is just being able to truly understand. And I mean, Sarah and I have talked about this, but the spiritual journey that we each are on, it's so closely tied to our heart and our emotions. I mean, me maybe more than other people because I cry a lot, but and so you have to work around not being offended and really trying to understand what people are trying to say to you. I think that that's maybe one of the biggest hurdles in these relationships is just, okay, you know what? I am going to believe the best of Sarah and Heather because I love them. And I actually know that they love me, and we are in this wonderful relationship. And if any of us come across with maybe a weirdly placed question or a bumbling reply, we just extend the grace of, we're all trying to, my gosh, they're asking. We're trying, we're answering. Like, that's huge. I mean, that's, and for me, like, I guess even just being bold enough to say what I think as opposed to just listening, like that's, and bold, but not overbearing, I guess. Maybe isn't that a scripture somewhere?
As you're sharing that, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that is universal. I mean, most of us at some point or another feel like, well, that didn't come out right, right? But I think what good practice? Well, I mean, first of all, what good practice for us to try to explain why our faith is important or whatever the topic is, and just really put those, get those words out there. But also, I love that you spoke to grace. I mean, you have to have, if you have a friendship, if you truly have a friendship, you do extend that grace. And if someone asked a question that maybe sounded odd or off-putting, you actually, you know that's not their heart. And so you give them that grace and that patience. But if you have that foundation of friendship, boy, you really can have, we've had some pretty incredible conversations. And we have talked about differences. Yeah. And we've been able to do that with grace.
So I'm actually curious of, from both your perspective, how did you handle those conversations? You've been friends for years, right? You've had these conversations. We've all had these conversations together. What were the things you did to be able to overcome those differences, navigate those tough moments when all of a sudden there's tension in the room because you can feel that we may have stumbled across something that we didn't believe in the same way? What did that look like? Help, just for our own audience's sake. They haven't experienced probably what we were experiencing. Yeah. Give them a picture of how did you handle it?
Go on a walk.
We do.
We go on walks
we
because
like walks.
The beauty thing is that I'm not sitting across the table from Sarah saying, so how do you feel about this? I am saying, okay, you know what? We're walking, we're engaged with our dogs, and they're doing things, and there's a moment for distraction that I get to take a breath. And I get to understand. And I think that's something that I have learned in our conversations is to take a breath, to, okay, don't just feel like, don't feel pressure to answer. Oh, and say, I don't know. I've never thought about it. Because what I had
You're good
found.
at that. You're really good at that.
But in all of these relationships, people of other faith will ask questions you maybe not have thought about in your own faith.
Yes.
And so you can say, I've never thought about that before because I haven't. And that's not admitting to some failing on you. It's just, wow, okay, you know what? Brain check. Let's think that one through. But that's a skill. It's taken me time to realize I don't have to, there's pressure to, I have to answer right now.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
It reminds me of the time you asked me, and I've shared this story once before, but I was standing on your doorstep. It's early in our friendship. And remember, you asked me a question about marriage in heaven. And no one had ever asked me a question about marriage in heaven before. And so I just answered a simple matter of fact, this is what the Bible says. And I didn't know where else to take it. So I'm like, all right. I talk to you later. But I love that because we go on walks, and I love to process and think out loud, and Val is so incredibly patient. I think another thing that how I would answer your question, Heather, is when I ask Val or anyone who comes from another faith background or different beliefs, I try to ask them questions from a place of curiosity, not criticism. And truly, I want to hear what Val believes from Val. And that's something I had to learn too. I can go online, I can learn a lot of things about this faith or that faith, but I don't want to necessarily assume that just because I read this online that that's what they actually believe, and that everybody who goes to that church believes this. It's not necessarily true. So that's another thing I've learned is be curious, but also try not to assume too much about what the other person believes, and rather than go online, I try to just learn it from her. Like, what do you believe? And tell me about this. And I know probably there's times that she has extended me grace where maybe I didn't come at it with the right heart, but I think that's something that we've learned over time.
Yeah. No, it's a skill. We grow together.
Grow together. Again, that extending grace allows you to be able to make some of the mistakes and the fumblings in order to be able to continue a relationship that allows you to seek who God is. I'm curious, when you think back on your journey of engaging your neighbor, what are some of the biggest joyful moments for you? Things that have just been, wow, I'm like, this is why I do it. So like, can you think of any, whether it's stories or reasons behind the thing that draws you in and wants you to continue to do this?
Okay. I think it's just, I'm an extrovert, I'm a people person, and the people along the way have made the joy there. And for my own growth, my own testimony, I've learned so much more about myself, and maybe realizing that's what we're doing here. Like, I love to learn about all of these differences and all of it my evangelical friends will bring to the table, because that allows me to grow in a different way. And I really love the principles. Chara does a great job, and I find myself even applying those Chara principles, even if I'm studying the Book of Mormon, even if I'm studying, it's going to deepen that study to be able to apply. And I'm pulling more from the Bible, which, if I'm being honest, my faith community loves. I teach gospel doctrine, and I think I shared this with you guys, but one of the women afterwards, she came up, she's like, have you ever thought about divinity school? And I'm like, no, definitely not. However, what a compliment. And I mean,
and it's because of your knowledge in the Bible.
It's because of my Bible study.
What is divinity school?
What is divinity school?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's like a college thing, right? Isn't that for you guys?
Okay.
That's not
like a theology.
Yeah.
Okay, got
Okay,
it.
I didn't know if that was like a class or something.
See,
so
look at we just
We
did
just
it.
did it.
Making sure we understand.
Clarify
No,
language.
I thought that's what I've read about.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's,
okay.
Yeah, getting a degree in theology or like going to seminary. Got it. Totally.
That's what she meant. So
Right.
yeah.
But I love that. I love that, Val, and I think there's something to that of being able to deepen your own faith and in your own journey, and it ends up impacting the people around you. What we're doing here can be quite scary for people, right? Yeah. I mean, we even all were a little nervous as we entered into this realm. What advice would you give to somebody that is doing this maybe for the first time, or somebody that is curious about doing this? What advice would you give, and kind of parting thoughts to our community, things that you haven't had a chance to share today that you wanted to make sure that you shared with them?
Yeah, I think maybe one of the best things that we've also done is not just the women's Bible study, but incorporating our families and my husband Jared, we do our small groups on Sundays. That's been wonderful, because I mean, nothing makes my heart happier than to have my kids, Mom, is it Bible study today? Like, yep. You're not really doing anything with that other than seeing your friends, but we're going to count that as goodness.
Yeah.
So, and you know what? I mean, we've talked about grace, and grace is easy when you have a relationship with somebody. You know, you love them, you've gotten to know them. But I think that even on the outset, be bold, be brave, and have grace from the beginning, like realizing all of us are trying to know our Savior better. We're trying to know, to learn more about ourselves and all of God's children. So maybe that's kind of like the point.
I think that humility is so
Yes.
incredibly important. Coming to the table with a group of people who believe differently and having that humility that, you know what, I'm still learning. I'm still learning my Bible. I'm still learning about God. I have room to grow. And so letting yourself be on a faith journey, but honoring others where they're at on their faith journey is so incredibly important to doing this.
Yeah, just listen way more, especially at the beginning. Listen way more than you talk. Like it just, you'll understand better. You'll learn more, and then be able to. Well, and that was easy for me because I was scared to talk.
But that's not always the case. We've shared on other podcasts about the idea that some people want to say all the things, all their
true.
beliefs, and
That's
so there's a
true.
natural tendency to sometimes overshare when it's time to listen. And so there is a balance, right? But it is scary, and sometimes you are the observer at first, and that probably is an okay place to be too, because you really get to get a sense of the people in the room and what's going on before you jump in and start sharing your thoughts. Val, I can't tell you how honored we were to have you on the podcast, and how honored we are to have you as a friend. Our journey with you is unlike anything else we've ever experienced, and we could not tell you how proud we are to be calling you a friend, and the journey that we've all been able to go and grow in the Bible together. It has just been awe-inspiring. So thank you for being here. If you liked what you heard today, and if you are interested in learning more about how to engage your neighbor in the Bible study, you can download our neighbor guide, which is on our website, available for free. We also have the Chara Bible Study Guide, which helps you read the Bible on its own terms. We've used the Chara Bible Study Guide on a myriad of different Bible studies that we've done together as a group that allow us to be able to explore the Bible together. And, we also would love for you to like, comment, subscribe. We want to engage with you. We want to hear from you. So make sure that you do that. And join us next time as we continue to build confidence in studying the Bible on your own and with your neighbor. Thanks for joining us.